Hello, winners, and welcome to Two for the Win with your hosts, Nick and Will. Have you ever wondered, how do people who are in leadership prepare so that they are ready for pressure-packed situations? Well, glad you asked. I'm glad you're wondering that, because we're going to talk about that in today's episode. But before we do, please be sure to follow, share, and subscribe. Two for the Win on your favorite platform. We're on all the major platforms, including YouTube. And also want to give a shout out to nickmenard.com and the 1% Push, as well as his Amazon best-selling book, Mindset is My Degree, for sponsoring today's episode. Thank you, Nick Menard.
You're very welcome. Hello, Will. Hello, winners.
Here we are, Manic Monday, Mindset Monday.
Cannot wait.
Yeah. Good stuff. So, I know we have a variety of experiences we draw upon in terms of, you can't script everything. You can prepare, but sometimes stuff happens. But in terms of a high level, any thoughts you want to share about how to lead in pressure-packed situations?
Yeah, I believe everybody listening to our podcast know that, in leadership and in life in general, you will have more difficult time than others. And you need to go through them. Unfortunately, they're there. You cannot just, change the itinerary and miss them. So you need to be ready for them and be ready to act upon those. And as a leader, you may not be the one who is in high pressure, but maybe people in your team. So how are you going to handle that? How are you going to handle yourself when there's pressure time? And how are you going to handle your team when they feel under pressure? So that's very good that we chat about this and maybe give some nuggets for people to use for their own organization.
Yep. Sounds good. So as we jump into mental rehearsal for pressure moments, we are going to kick off with our favorite segment, Quotes and Quips. There we go. Stereo surround sound. You got to love it. All right. The first one is the U.S. Navy SEALs motto. When I saw this, I loved it. The quote is, "The more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in battle." Thoughts on that?
Love it. So everybody know that if you listen to the podcast or read the book, that I used to play basketball professionally back in Europe. And so I'm going to use a lot of those sports kind of stories. But everybody knows that the more you train, the easier is it at a game, because you prepare yourself to put in certain situations. It's the same in business. And a lot of little nuggets. When you are... we do public speaking as well. So when you prepare for a speech, if you prepare correctly, the speech will go flawless because you are rehearsing. You are listening to yourself. You write it down what you're going to read. You speak in front of a mirror. You listen to your own voice to repeat and to memorize. And the more you do it, the more it's so natural when you have to speak in public. What happened if you were rushed and you just started a couple of days before, and then you just know the highlights, but you don't know maybe the one-liners or the very important step that you need to share, and you may miss a couple of very important steps. Your audience will not know, but you will realize that you missed an opportunity to make a bigger impact on your audience. And so the training aspect of it, the coaching aspect of it, the rehearsal aspect is so important. So I love this quote because definitely at the Army or Navy SEALs, it's constant repetition. I remember when I saw on Netflix the documentary about when Bin Laden was killed. The way they rehearsed, they literally built the compound where Bin Laden was in whatever it was, like Afghanistan. It was in Pakistan, I think, that he was hidden. And then they just had the full video and picture of the architecture where he was, and they literally rebuild it in United States for them to train for weeks and weeks about all the different scenarios. What if you come in and someone is on the right side? What if you come in, someone is on the left side? What if, and all the what ifs. So when they are actually going in, they are so trained blindly, they can actually access the different module. And that's the power of training and repetition. So I truly believe in this, and I I think that it's a no-brainer in business, in leadership, that you know how to handle different situation with different team, with different region, because they all are different. So the manner in which you are actually handling them matter, and it's all about preparation.
Yeah, totally agree. I think, they say the definition of luck is when preparedness meets opportunity. Well, preparedness, right, is
Love
the
that.
first aspect of it. And I remember when I was very early in my career, I think I was 22, 23, and I was in a sales role for a mortgage broker. And I had a big client. It was going to be this big refinance and very lucrative. And I remember we were supposed to have a 30-minute meeting, and shows up late, and he's like, I only got 10 minutes, so can you do it in 10 minutes? And I was not prepared for a 10-minute chat. I was prepared for a 30-minute chat, and I was rattled. And how sometimes you have those experiences that almost like burn into your brain because they did not go as well as you hoped, but it's like a great lesson. And for me, that was something that really, I think, put me on the path of scenario planning, right? Like, okay, if I got 30 minutes, this is what I'm going to say. If I get cut short, what is the short, concise power thing that I can do to go through it and, hopefully get the outcome that I'm seeking? So it helps, say you stub your toe, you learn, and you grow. That's the name of the game.
Yeah, and that's a challenge that helps you build, who you are today, because you've been through it. And if you didn't go through it, you would have not learned, and then you may have make other mistakes, maybe.
Yeah, or
critical.
more severe mistakes. Yeah, for sure. All right, so the quip. This one is not sourced, but I'd love to give this person a high five if I've ever met this person. So the quip is, visualization is great until somebody asks for a spreadsheet. Thoughts on that one?
So
here we go.
So for the audience, Mr. Will knows me like no others, and he knows how to trigger my stuff. Last couple of weeks, he mentioned something about meetings that triggered me, and I was very that was a heated discussion. And now it comes with spreadsheet. So basically, those are the two things that I despise the most. I never use spreadsheet in any of my meetings, and I would never use spreadsheet if I could. But sometimes you have to. But in order to convey a message, you do not need to put a spreadsheet together to make sense.
You don't need to do a VLOOKUP?
Like, seriously, think about it. How many times when you go on a meeting and you have a spreadsheet and someone send a recap and the spreadsheet is attached to it? Please tell me how many times you click on the spreadsheet after the first time. I'm waiting. Never. You never look at a spreadsheet. Or if you want to look at a spreadsheet, you don't remember which one it is and you never find it back. So don't do it. But if you are sharing something valuable, or if you are sharing like a strong message, and you will always remember, the maybe not the full message, but the aspect of the message, or what it's, what was the guideline or the big lines about the message. And if you want more, you reach back out to the person who delivered the message, because you remember, because it was impactful. A spreadsheet is not impactful. It's never going to be impactful. So please,
when you were practicing your low post moves in basketball, you didn't close your eyes and visualize how you would carry the decimal and reduce it over in order to pivot just a 45-degree angle in order to go up and under with the hoop?
So one time in my career, I got a coach who came up with a spreadsheet for everybody to learn about the stuff, and everybody laughed in the locker room because, like, dude, we're never gonna watch it. Let's practice. We come back about the practicing. Let's practice the play. Understand what are the 2, 3, That's the number 1 option. That's the number 2 option. That's the number 3 option. But the way to see it and actually get used to it is by doing it. It's not by reading it. It's not by. And I understand that for some people, a visual is very important. great. Let them do it. But you do not need to have a visual in order to make an impact as a leader. And that's all I'm going to say right now.
There we
But
go.
I will pass the ball to Will, because Will may have another way to think about this.
Oh no, I like it. I'll just leave it like that. I thought that was great. I'm just proud of you. You didn't take it longer. I thought you were really going to go like you did on that meeting one, but you did good. You did good. We'll drop the mic with that right there.
Learning.
Boop. No, it's good. It's good. Great points. And this goes to a larger. So that let's jump into the topic. So, to our listeners, our winners, have you ever walked into a high stakes meeting and felt your mind go blank? And I think it's a fear not a lot of people probably consciously worry about, but it's one of those underlying fears, right? It's like, oh, what do I do? And just making a funny with the quip in the spreadsheet. The reason why I think some people like spreadsheets is they give you a sense of certainty, right? You can point to something and it looks factual because it's numerical and things like that. And there's a sense of comfort. But I think, when you really have, I'll throw a couple different scenarios. I love your take on this. Either a very deep understanding of a topic, or it's a topic that you're extremely passionate about, or it's a topic that's really critical to what you're trying to achieve, either in your business or in the company that you're working for. Like, you can speak from the heart more often than not, as well as the mind, versus having to rely on a bunch of statistics or props or things like that. But maybe there's other scenarios. But like for you, like how do you go through when you have a big meeting coming up, whether it's a call or a meeting or whatever, and what is an example of how you prepare so that, you don't have that freezing moment where your mind goes blank?
Well, that's a good question. And I think it depends in which context it is. But usually what I like to do is like, what are the 2 or 3 ways that this conversation can go? So I want to have a solution or a way to come across different answer from the person I have my meeting with. Is the person going to be positive? Great. Then we go that direction. Is the person going to be completely negative? Okay, great. Then I need to explain better the why, for example. If the person going to be good but have some additional question, what kind of question could be coming from this topic? And I try to prepare myself for different scenario. So when he goes or she goes a certain direction, well, I have something in my back pocket to use to go with that. But sometimes you don't have all the answers, or you don't know really. And that's where it's important to ask better questions. So again, when you're stuck in a meeting about something, ask a question to understand better what the person mean, instead of hiding the fact that you don't understand by just talking to talk. Right. And there's not a lot of things who are worse than meeting spreadsheet and hearing people talking to talk because they don't understand what the topic or what the reason of their question is. So I would probably think like that. No, if you are in leadership and you have to have a difficult conversation with an employee, an associate, or anything like that. Well, same thing. You need to prepare to understand the tone of voice to use for certain situations, because you may be direct and maybe the person is amiable, or maybe he's analytic and we need more time to process or more reason why. So you need to understand who you're talking to for the intonation and the kind of way to come up with something. But again, it's from people to people, and that's why it's so important to do mission of discovery with everybody, to understand how they, what tick them and how they like to be talked to, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, totally agree. Because again, I think, if you're going into a presentation, it's helpful if you know your audience, right? Because then you can kind of drift tendencies towards what you know is going to resonate them, or the style. But sometimes you don't know the audience. So I loved your point about, hey, if you get stuck or if you're unsure, ask a question. There's a question that, we both know 2 of these people who use this question quite a bit, and I really like it. So like, let's say you had a difficult conversation with somebody and they're like, well, I'm a professional. I'm acting as a professional. One of the ways you can kind of dig deeper is, well, being a professional means different things to different people. What do you mean? What does it mean to you when you say the word professional?
Love it.
And that can really unearth some things, and then you can pivot. So I think it's important. You have to have some flexibility. So you may have a core message you want to get across, but how you get that message across, I think you need to adapt to the person, because at the end of the day, it's a two-way conversation. Or if it's a larger presentation, it's you and the audience. You can do the best you can to prepare and try to convey it. But if it starts to go in a different direction, you have to be able to adapt. So going back to your original answer to that first, Navy SEALs, you plan for different scenarios, and you
Absolutely.
can't plan for everything, but you narrow it to the big rocks. Generally, there's only going to be a few like major different ways things can go. Don't worry about the minutia so much, because that you can always get back to.
And I think two open-ended question that I really love, and it can save you in different scenario when you're not sure. If you are client facing, or if you are in with associate or employees, one is started with help me understand. Help me understand, blah 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 blah. That's open-ended, and you're gonna have more information. Or the easiest one, tell me more. Tell me more. And that's usually will open up the Pandora box of someone like spitting out everything more in detail, and it's gonna help you understand what they mean by what they try to convey.
No, totally get it. I know we both believe in the power of visualization, and I think we talked about in one of our very first episodes about Dennis Waitley and how he was working with Olympic athletes, and they would hook up these sensors to their brain and have them visualize them running the race. And then they would hook up the sensors to the brain when they actually ran in practice. And the same areas lit up. And his point was, your brain cannot differentiate between what you're visualizing and what you're actually doing. It treats them the same. So when they were doing these visualization exercises, he would be like, see yourself coming out of the block, see yourself coming around the first turn, notice your breath. How do your legs feel? Your arms swinging, all that sort of stuff. And when they did that, the productivity increase from everyone who went through the exercises of visualization was markedly improved. But when you play basketball, or maybe in any endeavor that you've done, how have you utilized visualization techniques, and what do you find that seems to work for you?
Well, in basketball, that's interesting because it's a team sport. So it's the same in football, for example, American football. It's important to not only know where you should be on the field for certain plays, but also how your teammate should be. And that's where it differentiates, the good to the great. Like when you look at in NBA, for example, I remember Tim Duncan mentioning that, which is the best power forward to ever played. Usually, as big guys in basketball, you think about where you should be because you want to make sure that you are where you're supposed to be. So the point guard or the wing player don't have to look at you. They know that you should be there after a back screen or something like that. The difference with Tim Duncan is that he knew where other players were better than any other 4 or 5 in the history of the game, probably. And that's why he was so effective, because he could, in one little seconds, and no, I think that Jokic is the same way. He knows exactly where his teammates should be at a certain time during a play. And that's why you see for Jokic, for example, all those plays when you have like the wing player cutting when he get the ball in the low post, because he knows that the gap will be there. So if they cut like they're supposed to, he just dish the pass in the middle of the bucket. There's nobody there. And that's one of the reasons why players like Jokic, like Duncan, are so smart, because they know where the other player should be. So the visualization is important in training to not only make sure that you know where you're supposed to be, but you know how your teammate should be in order to give like easy basket in some instances. So visualization is key on those aspects.
Yeah. No, I agree. And in the workplace, like going back to that example you mentioned about having a difficult conversation, visualize that. Visualize the fact that your heart may be racing a little bit. Visualize the fact, what if somebody responds not positively? What if they respond okay? Sometimes, there's the old adage in sales, don't oversell the sale. Like if it's good to go, then go.
Yeah. And 2 weeks ago, I had a conversation with one of my leader who had to have a difficult conversation, and we role played it. We role played
Mhm.
it to make sure that, like she knows, how the person can potentially be reacting and how to actually, handle it the best way possible and the most human way possible to have that difficult conversation.
Yeah, yeah, and we were both aware of somebody who did role plays to the extreme in interviews, and she was phenomenal. She was one of the first ever female officers in the
Mm-hmm.
Marines, and she would. It was unorthodox because it's a little different than like normally when you role play. I don't know about you, but I would sometimes try to lead the witness so they could get
Mm-hmm.
there or give them a softball type thing to practice. And I learned I wasn't really doing them
She
many
didn't do
favors.
that.
And that got an exclamation point when we were in interviews with her because she would be like, okay, go. And the person would start. And if they started bad, like she would stop it after 15 seconds, like stop. And then she'd give feedback right then and there, go again, boom. And it was a drill. But people left that more often than not where they're like, I've never had such a tough interview and I've never learned so much in
Mm-hmm.
an interview. So it was really useful. So try to play different scenarios. And I'll share a real quick funny story. I don't know if he listens to our podcast, but Sean, uh,
Oh.
he was in the interview and Sean's one of these guys. He smiles all the time. And he's just got one of those smiles that brightens up the room. And he's such a nice person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's hard to be mean. And she's pinging me because I'm doing the role play. She's like, yell at him, slam your fist on the desk, do all this stuff. And I was trying to do some of it, but I wasn't going full because I like Sean and all that. She's like, you suck. But I mean, it's one of those things. But
Some people
she
you
was
you
amazing.
cannot really like.
No, I know, but I mean, but she was right. Like she wanted to test his metal,
Mhm.
and I wasn't fully testing his metal in there because I really liked him. And I wanted to see him do well,
I
stuff
know.
like that. Like I am human. We have human emotions, but
Absolutely.
that was great. I think a few quick steps I wanted to share in terms of these are just examples. I'm not saying these are thou shouts, but when you're thinking about mentally preparing for a big client meeting, a big presentation, or whatever, here's a few step-by-step guides for mental rehearsal. One, identify the scenario, which goes without saying. Choose an upcoming real challenge that you're going to role play with somebody. So make it real. Don't make it fictional. Step two, visualize the environment. You engage your senses, not just what you're thinking or what you're going to say. Say it. Think about the room you're going to be in, the sounds, the people that are going to be surrounding. Really feel it, not just think through it. The third thing, and I love this, and this goes to a lot of things that we do, script the key moves. So, what will you say or do? Visualize handling curveballs. So, like, if you get an example, make sure the person you're role playing with, throws something out of left field that's not expected and lined in there so that you can practice being adaptable to that. 4, rehearse with emotional clarity. So imagine being calm, decisive, and steady. The best example I ever heard of this, and I don't do it all the time, but when I do remember to do it, I do find it effective, is almost look down on yourself in the situation. So like when you're interacting, it's a way to detach the emotion from it and to be objective. It's kind of hard to explain, especially verbally over this, but if you can visualize a scenario and almost look like you're looking down on yourself interacting with somebody, it can help for you to perform better in those situations. And then step 5, repeat for confidence. Regular short sessions build the mental muscle. So it goes back to that Navy SEALs quote. You want to be practicing till it hurts so you don't bleed in battle, so to speak. But any
Yeah,
thoughts
I
on those
love
steps
I
or
love
anything you would add or anything?
I already mentioned pretty much everything, but I love to compare this with sport because in sport is literally what you do. Like if you want the ball to go to a certain player at a certain time, we have plays for that. And the point guard call a play. That's why you see, if you're not familiar, if you know basketball but not very familiar in depth, when you see the point guard showing a number with their finger or maybe doing like a certain movement, that's signaling a play for the other players who knows what that play means, because that's what they rehearse every single training. And it's very important to be able to not only understand the why we run this play, but also the how to run this play and what to do when defense is acting a certain way. So if you have a defense going individual defense, or if you play in zone or box and one, those plays should be instead of rolling out, is rolling in, it's pop out. So it's more technical here, but it's very important. You need to understand the different variants of each play based on what you want to accomplish. So if you have like a team with smaller, you want to feed the big guys. Well, that's not just dribbling and then throw the ball up. You need to actually run something so the big guy doesn't receive only the ball, but receive the ball in the best possible situation for the big guy to have an easy basket. Like if you have a shooter who is extremely good and they have a weak defender, let's take like Luka last year, for example, but they were always run against LA with Minnesota, or against Luka, because Luka was the weakest link in defense during that series. And so they were making sure that the wing player were receiving the ball in the best possible way so they can attack the basket and attack Luka, and make sure that the center, who is the shot blocker, is on the other side of the field. So he cannot come help. So everything is pre-done, but it's like hours and hours and hours of repetition. And so it's the same in business. Like, the more you know your craft, the more you understand your people, the more you repeat it, the better it's gonna be, and the more natural it's gonna also feel.
Yeah, 100%. Like I go back to my time in sales when you're prospecting. If I just went off a list of names and numbers and smiled and dialed, so to speak, as I used to call it, eventually you would be successful, but you have to churn through a lot of numbers. Now, if I was able to get some information about the prospect, whether I found it online or whatever, and I could go into that conversation more informed, and I could mention something that I knew would relate to their background or maybe their interest, it helped build rapport quicker, and I was able to stay on the phone longer. And I would go through different scenarios. What happens if you call up somebody and they say, "Hey, can you talk right now?" "No, I can't talk right now." What are you going to say? You got 10 seconds maybe, right? You're going to try to schedule the next call and try to get that. So I would play that. What if they say, "I have 2 minutes"? Okay, now I need to know, what am I going to say in 2 minutes? So if they're like, "Sure, we can have a chat, 5 minutes or whatever." So you got to play out those different scenarios and know what you're going to say, or at least have a basic framework of what you're going to try to get across. So it comes through coherent, it comes through influential, and then hopefully, deepens the relationship and the discussion.
And at the end of the day, confidence is key. And if the more you repeat, the more confident you become. And the more confident you are, the easier is it to sell anything, the easier is it to convey a message, because the confidence is palpable. And when you talk to someone who is confident about something, you will buy in a lot faster. So.
Oh yeah, confidence and conviction is key. Like if I say, "Hey Nick, if you have a chance, maybe you can tune in to Monday, and if you don't mind, listen to the Monday Mindset. It's like only 30 minutes of blah blah blah." It's weak.
No, absolutely,
it's weak. Versus I say, "Hey, how would you like to take your leadership to the next level? Tune in this Monday for 30 minutes and you'll get some tips I guarantee you will help make you a better leader."
You don't want to miss it.
That's not perfect, but it's better than the first example.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agree.
There we go. Fantastic. All right. Anything else you want to add?
No, I love that. I think it's self-explanatory, but it's very important to remind our audience about the importance of preparing for time of stress or maybe more difficult time.
Yeah. You exercise your body, exercise your mind, and you will find when tough situations arise, you will be well equipped to navigate through those experiences, hopefully unscathed or relatively unscathed versus if you didn't prepare. So that'll do it for this Monday Mindset, winners. Thanks for tuning in. Please be sure to follow, share, and subscribe to For the Win, so you know every time we drop a new episode. We're on all the major platforms, including YouTube. And again, thanks to nickmenard.com and the 1% Push, as well as his Amazon best-selling book, Mindset is My Degree, for sponsoring today's episode. That'll do it. We'll see you next Monday, winners.
Bye, winners.